war with China as the one China policy is dismantled, but more pressing now is, of course, an actual another war beginning in the Middle East over Gaza, and so I really wanted to focus on the Middle East today because, well, I guess in the past in the Middle East, the US and all collective West largely had escalation control. They, target one, while the other states could be deterred from joining in. But the West, and including the US, is somewhat weaker now, and the Middle Eastern states have grown more powerful. Also, this war and the destruction of Gaza is something very different, I think, from the previous wars. So I was just wondering, how do you read the situation? Has Israel and the United States overplayed their hand, or have they walked into something they can't control? What do you see the strategy being? The risks, of course.
Well, whenever a nation state involves itself in conflict, they need to immediately shed the illusion of control. It's very difficult to foresee all circumstances, and that's why even the best strategist recognizes that goals and objectives have to adapt and change. I think the problem we have right now with both the government in Israel and the government in the United States is there really is no strategy per se. The Israelis are reacting to the events of 7 October, and I don't know of anyone anywhere who disagrees with the assertion that these acts were horrific and atrocious in every sense of the words. However, 3.5 weeks later, we're now watching as over 8,500 people in Gaza have been killed, of which at least 3,500 are children. As I communicated to a friend in the Israeli Defense Force, I said everybody understands the need to eradicate Hamas. The question is, first of all, can it be done under the circumstances? Is it realistic to do that? And then secondly, how is Israel's case helped when with each passing day, whatever memory there is of the horrific acts of Hamas against Israeli citizens is gradually erased by new horrific acts in Gaza caused by Israeli fire, largely airstrikes, but also some ground fire. I don't think there's an understanding of that right now. There's the view that there are no such things as civilians. Those are just combatants. And if they don't want to be combatants, then they should leave and go somewhere else. But we know that there are at least 500,000 people located inside northern Gaza because that's where they live and they really have nowhere else to go. And many have decided that they'd rather die at home in dignity than die in the desert somewhere. I don't think that particular set of circumstances really helps Israel's case at all. But I understand why the Israelis feel the way they do. The problem now is that in the United States, for many, many years, I would say decades, there has been a careful cultivation of not just support for Israel, but the readiness to effectively do whatever the Israelis think is appropriate. In other words, unconditional support for Israel without much question. This is a combination, I think, of two things. One is certainly money that is poured into the pockets of politicians on the Hill and into presidential campaigns by Israeli supporters who want to ensure that whatever we do, we always support Israel. And on the other hand, I think there's also the role that is played by Christian evangelists who are convinced that they have a holy obligation to fight for or support Israel. But the truth is, we do have an obligation to think about the United States and its interests. And I don't think we're giving that much thought at this point. Our war stocks are exhausted. We've shipped almost everything we possibly could to the Israelis in terms of, to the Ukrainians in terms of ammunition.